Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco. This is daily FaB gameplay, and today's game will be played against Katsu the Wanderer. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge my play. I'll walk through turn cycles as if I were playing them now while explaining my thought process for the lines that I take, and we compare that to what I did in the past. In doing so, we either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns. The point of doing all this is to optimize and tighten our gameplay in the future, take down paper events like Road to Nationals and ProQuests, and walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. Without further ado, let's jump into our sideboard and our game plan. Today's game will feature my harmonized Kodachi list. If you would like to check out that deck list on FaB or try it for yourself on Talishar, the deck link is in the video description below. While you're down there, if you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best way to support me and make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. Today's game is played against a viewer. He identified himself in Talishar chat. We had a good time bantering back and forth. It was a really fun experience. I am on Talishar. If you ever run into me, be sure to invite to chat and say hi. We lost the die roll, so we will be going first. Makes a lot of sense. If we had won the die roll, we would have wanted to go second. The idea here is in an aggro mirror like FaB versus Katsu. The first attack can get blocked out by the opposing player. Then both players redraw at the end of turn 1. And whoever goes second gets the first real attack on life total or on hand size. So we're going to try to leak a little bit of damage over Katsu's blocks, but we aren't expecting to get more than a few points on offense, if that. The real goal of going first is to set up an arsenal, set up that 5-card hand for the next turn, and hopefully apply some pressure that way. We are going to stick with our Kodachi momentum plan so that 5th card in arsenal isn't as impactful as maybe it could be if we were on an Emberblade plan. Ideally, we do want to present 6 chain links in a turn. We want to either make Katsu block or have an extra point of intellect and apply pressure in that way. Of course, the same thing is going to be happening to us. Katsu does not have an alternate build. He is always on Kodachi momentum, so we really are playing the true mirror in this sense. We are going to keep our Flamescale Furnace as it is an extra 2 points of life, which is very impactful in the aggro mirror, and because Ninja does not deal arcane damage, we don't need our Spell Void or our Arcane Barrier. Moving into the 60, we are going to board out our E-Strikes and board in our Sink Belows. You know me, I love E-Strike, but it is always the first thing to get cut when I am bringing in Sink Belows, as it does not play well with Art of War. Because we are playing against Katsu and that 4 damage breakpoint is very impactful, we want a way to more effectively block Yellow Surging Strike, Be Like Water, if we suspect that our opponent is holding on to an Ancestral Recall. It also plays well with Armor for blocking those breakpoints as well. Sink Below out of Arsenal or even out of hand is just very impactful against Katsu. We aren't making any other adjustments to the list. Ninja is probably the least impacted class by Warmonger's Diplomacy, so it is absolutely not coming in, and Reinforce the Line is just overkill here. The game plan against Katsu is to block out those breakpoints as much as we can. If we think that Katsu is setting up for a big combo, we would look to block so that we can strip cards out of his hand, delay his ability to trigger his hero, and hopefully put a stop to that combo. But more often than not, we are going to let the Surging Strike go through. The philosophy I've heard is if you block Surging Strike, be prepared to block whatever comes next. As FaB, we don't want to block and when we are forced to, we don't do it very well. So if I'm going to block anything in a turn, it's going to be the impactful on hit. I'm letting Surging Strike go through, and I'm blocking either the Welding Gust Wave that comes next, or the Bonds of Ancestry that follows Descendant Gust Wave to stop the Mask of Momentum trigger. There are times where we are happy to take damage if we get to throw back a 5-card Art of War hand. That is how we're looking to take tempo in this matchup, especially going first. But we are not going to do so lightly. We're going to play more strategically, look for our opportunities, and overblock if necessary. Keeping in mind that Breaking Scales starts on the table, but that Ancestral Empowerment is a card that exists. We may want to overblock by 2 if we really are afraid of a combo attack hitting. So it's a weird game. It is a weird game plan. It's very fluid depending on the board state. The easiest way to show you what I'm talking about is to jump into the game and see how it all comes together. Phoenix Flame goes to discard, and we are on the play. Drawing into a bit of a weird hand here. As far as pushing damage on turn 1, it is fine. Brand with Cinderclaw is an easy 1-card block from Katsu. Either of the Kodachis is an easy 1-card block, but we do get to throw a Phoenix Flame, we do get to throw a Stab Wound, so it is entirely possible that we're going to leak a couple points of damage just by sheer number of chain links. And we do get to put an Art of War into Arsenal for our next turn. We are not interested in firing off Art of War here. Maybe if we were going second and this is the hand we drew up into, I would be interested in firing off this Art of War even with 4 cards. But on turn 1, I really want to put that in my arsenal. So we're going to lead with Brand with Cinderclaw, follow it with 2 Kodachis, a Phoenix Flame, and a Stab Wound. If the Stab Wound hits, that's incredible, but we aren't expecting it to. Following with a Kodachi which hits, Kodachi number 2 which hits as well. Our Stab Wound is looking a lot better. It does make me wonder what is in Katsu's hand, that he doesn't want to block these first attacks because he draws up at the end of our turn. So either the cards in Katsu's hand don't block, or they are important combo pieces. Considering that he's breaking a Heart and Cross Strap here, we can pretty safely assume that he's trying to go off and that the cards he is holding on to are important for this combo turn. Like I said, I don't like blocking Surging Strike. I like blocking whatever comes after Surging Strike. So I am prepared to let this Surging Strike hit. I do want to block this turn. We have our Art of War in Arsenal, but with an all-red hand, it isn't going to be very good. With an all-red hand, this Command and Conquer is not very strong, our Mounting Anger is not very strong. Just in general, if I can block with Command and Conquer and Mounting Anger here, I'm happy to do so. We see that Katsu is kicking out the Bonds of Ancestry, meaning that he has the natural Gust Wave. This Bonds of Ancestry finds a Flusterfist. We are going to take that damage, just has to happen, but we are going to block this Bonds for 5. If Katsu has the Ancestral Empowerment and wants to use Breaking Scales, then he is welcome to do so. We see that I block with the Flamescale Furnace, then undo. If I could keep another 0-cost attack here, I would block with the Furnace, throw a 3-attack turn, and threaten the Mask of Momentum. But with Mounting Anger as a 1-cost attack, I can't do it. I can only play 2 attacks this turn. So let's preserve armor, let's block with our CNC and our Mounting Anger. Make Katsu have the Ancestral Empowerment if he wants to get the Mask of Momentum trigger, or otherwise just take 4 damage from the Fluster Fist, let Katsu set up an arsenal. We see a double strike here, which is pretty gross. We are going to block this second double strike with Flamescale Furnace. Of course, here it looks like overblocking. We are blocking a 1-power attack with 2-power armor, but considering that the Fluster Fist, which follows this double strike, would be a Mask of Momentum trigger, and we are not prepared to block 4, we are going to block this double strike. The value of a random card off the top of the deck is 3. So essentially blocking here prevents 4 points of damage. We deny Katsu an arsenal. That does help with whatever is going to happen on his next turn. I am much more scared of Katsu with 5 cards than with 4. And we just throw Branded Cinderclaw, Ravenous Rabble on our turn, hoping to push a little damage. We even get a block from Katsu. It does put a Dishonor into the graveyard, but we are taking cards out of Katsu's hand. Katsu here with just 2, throwing the 100 Winds, which we are happy to take, and triggering Katsu to grab a Winds of Eternity, which we are also happy to take. This is another 4 points of damage. It puts a threat back into the deck, but with the hand we have, we just want to attack. We're still not going to fire off this Art of War. Unfortunately, we aren't seeing the blues that we need to make that worth it, but we can still present 3, 7, 11, 16 points of damage on this turn. Hopefully get some blocks from Katsu, otherwise just try to even up this life total. Rising Resentment gets a block by the red Welling. It puts a Welling Gustwave into the discard, but putting a red one in there is also pretty good for us. Ravenous Rabble does reveal a blue, which is always a shame. We would always rather have it reveal a red. It does make me at least feel good that I will be able to play this Art of War on my next turn. Blaze Headlong eats a Flick Flack, so there is an option for us to hold on to this Lava Burst. This is an easy 1-card block from Katsu. If he has a 3-block combo attack in hand, it will block this Lava Burst for 5. But I'm happy to take a card out of Katsu's hand. If I hold on to this Lava Burst, there is a chance that we get to set up a larger Art of War turn. But I am much happier throwing this. Taking away Katsu's turn, he puts a card into Arsenal, but that's it. On our turn, we are going to start with our Art of War. There is a line where we Kadachi, Ronin Renegade, then play the Art of War to try to get the Ronin damage over a 3-block, but Katsu still has block value on both Breaking Scales and Breeze Rider Boots, so I'm concerned that either Kadachi is going to get blocked, or that Katsu is going to smartly block Ronin Renegade for 4, and that will really negate the power of our Art of War. So we're going to lead with the Art of War, just see what our turn looks like, and go from there. We'll pitch a blue, we'll banish a blue, and we draw into a pretty okay looking hand. We get to go 6 links wide on this turn. We don't get to work a Phoenix Flame into this, unfortunately, but that is still okay. I like opening with a Kadachi here. I want to take away Katsu's ability to disrupt our Mask of Momentum trigger with armor. So if we start with Kadachi and the Kadachi gets blocked, well, that's fine because we still have 5 more links that we can put on the chain. But if we start with something like a Ronin Renegade and then throw a Kadachi and that Kadachi gets blocked, well, now we only have 4 more links that we can put on the chain. And if we then throw Lava Vein Loyalty, Kadachi, and that Kadachi gets blocked, now we can't threaten Mask of Momentum at all, and all it took was 2 pieces of armor from Katsu, and Katsu even gets to keep his armor because it's battle worn. So I like opening with Kadachi, then Ronin, then Lava Vein Loyalty, and we see that is the line that I'm taking here. Between Lava Vein Loyalty and Ravenous Rabble, I'm not sold on whichever would come after Ronin Renegade. Now, considering that this is a Flick Flack, I am happy to attack with Lava Vein Loyalty here because the Lava Vein Loyalty only comes for 4. Ravenous Rabble, in theory, comes for 5. Now we attack with our Kodachi, we get to follow with Ravenous Rabble, and end with Salt the Wound. Ravenous Rabble only coming for 3, unfortunately. We do get to throw a Salt the Wound after this. Salt does come for 6. And honestly, as tragic as that blue off the top is, if this Salt the Wound had hit, and we can see that it isn't going to, we are stripping Katsu's hand. But if Katsu wasn't going to block this Salt the Wound, I would use Snapdragons here, because our Stab Wound would get 1 point of power from Art of War, 1 point of power from Shuko, and threaten 2 damage on top of that from both of our Kodachis hitting. So our Snapdragons here would be worth 6 if we drew into this Stab Wound. Of course it doesn't, so we don't need to worry about this. Drawing into another okay hand, we can only go 5 links wide on this turn between our Brand, both Kodachis, Phoenix Flame, and Stab Wound, but we can at least threaten some damage. We will open with Brand, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame to get a block from Katsu, then Kodachi Stab Wound. Stab Wound will get the Shuko trigger, which hopefully, maybe, limits Katsu's blocking options and forces him to take a little more damage. But as it is, I'm not expecting much from this turn. We do get this Sink Below, which is going to be really, really helpful going into our next turn cycle. But as far as pressuring Katsu here, I'm not expecting much. Katsu does block the Kodachi with Breeze Rider Boots, so we do get to threaten a Mask of Momentum trigger. Depending on whether he does or doesn't block, we have the option to use Snapdragons here. I'm not sold on it. We are not even given the choice, so we don't have to spend too much time on that decision, but I do think that blind snapping there would be the wrong call. We draw into our second Art of War, which is really nice, but with no blue to go along with it, we are in kind of a weird spot. Katsu follows Kodachi with Surging Strike. We could block this Surging Strike with Sink Below, but like I said, if Katsu just has the follow-up, we don't want to block it. And if it's a Whelming Gust Wave, now we have to block it. So I'm happy to not block this Surging Strike and instead block whatever comes next. Okay, we can see that I do give the Armor and the Lava Vein loyalty here. I do think this is a good decision. We make Katsu have it. We also put the block on the attack without combo, so Katsu can't Breaking Scales over the top. What I don't like about this play is that we are broadening what Katsu can have. Now he can either have the natural follow-up or he can have Ancestral Empowerment. And we haven't seen an Empowerment out of Katsu yet, so we know they're still in the deck. If I was making this call now, I am more of a fan of taking the Surging Strike damage, blocking whatever the follow-up is, and maybe even overblocking by 2 with our Shuko and our Sink Below, and keeping Brand, Double Strike, Lava Vein loyalty. The thing with Brand and Double Strike here is we can only send 3 attacks on this turn, and 2 of them are very easily blocked. But if we keep the Lava Vein loyalty, now we can send 5 attacks because we can pick up our Phoenix Flame, and we make it just a little bit harder for Katsu to stop our Mask trigger. So I understand why I'm making this block, but at this point I don't agree with it. I would rather take this Surging Strike and block whatever the follow-up is, like this Descendant Gust Wave. So if we hadn't blocked that Surging Strike, I like blocking Descendant here, and I could give Furnace and Sink Below to block it. I could also give Shuko and Sink Below. But the other important thing about using the Sink Below on this Gust Wave, or at least on this turn, is that we clear out our arsenal for Art of War. 4-card Art of War is a lot less powerful than 5-card Art of War, and if we don't get to use our Sink Below here, then it's just stuck until the next turn. I really don't want to use Sink Below on this Descendant Gust Wave. I want to use it on Bonds. So if I'm assuming the worst and I'm thinking this Katsu has Bonds of Ancestry in his arsenal, I want to use Sink Below on either that or on whatever the Bonds finds, maybe even a Dishonor. Because if we use our Sink Below on this Gust Wave and then Katsu Bonds Dishonors, that's just horrible for us. That's so bad. We need to block Dishonor for 5, which we can't easily do. And a lot of that comes from really limiting our options by blocking earlier in this turn. So we aren't going to block this Gust Wave. We're going to play for the worst case scenario, and we're going to kind of hope that we are given the opportunity to clear out this Sink Below, and in fact we aren't. So we get to send 6 damage this turn. Maybe Katsu does a little blocking, but we're stuck with a Sink Below in arsenal and an Art of War in hand, and that's just kind of bad. We get to use our Sink Below to preserve our 4-card Art of War, but we really would have wanted a 5-card Art of War on this turn. Katsu playing E-Strike out of arsenal and giving it go again. That's fine. We will take that damage. Katsu can maybe use the trigger to find a follow-up to something in hand, but he just doesn't have a lot of options with 2 cards. Throwing a Soul Bead Strike, I'm happy to use my Sink Below on this. If Katsu has the Ancestral Empowerment, that is potentially bad for us, but even then, not really. Using the Sink Below just prevents the go again and puts us in a position to fire off this Art of War. So we are going to use the sink. We are not going to sink anything from our hand, and we are going to play a little trickier going into this next turn cycle. We had the opportunity on our last Art of War turn to Kadachi 3-power go again attack and trick our Katsu to get over the top of blocks, and we chose not to take it because Katsu had armor with block value. Well, Katsu no longer does, aside from the Mask of Momentum, which I think Katsu wants to keep. So what I like doing here is Kadachi Rising Resentment, use our last floating energy to play the Art of War and banish our Lava Burst to get over the top of a 3-block. We'll see if Katsu wants to give us that option. If I am Katsu here, I really advocate for blocking Rising Resentment with at least a 2-block and Mask of Momentum. I am at 8. It is unlikely that Katsu is going to get a Mask of Momentum trigger for the rest of this game, because at this point, the hit trigger is I lose. I can't afford to take too many more hits, so I'm likely blocking. Mask of Momentum has served its purpose, and at this point is protection against what I'm about to do, which is Art of War over the top of a block. If Katsu blocks this Rising Resentment for 5, I don't get to draw an extra card here. My options are severely limited. It is unlikely that 2 cards and an Art of War deals 14 points of damage or threatens another Mask of Momentum. And even if it does threaten another Mask of Momentum, it's unlikely that that card gets me to 14. And Katsu gets to put a lot more pressure on me. But getting back to the 5 perspective, we just got to draw 3 cards. Soaring Strike does make this hand a bit awkward, so we have a couple options. We could Double Strike, Salt the Wound. Double Strike coming for 5, Salt the Wound coming for a potential 8, and we arsenal the Soaring Strike, or we pitch our Double Strike for Soaring Strike, then play Salt the Wound. A third option would be to pitch Salt the Wound to play Soaring Strike, pick up Phoenix Flame and attack with that, then play out both double strikes. The Soaring Strike, double strike, Phoenix Flame line does a total of 12 damage. The Soaring Strike, Salt the Wound line does a total of 11 damage. And the double strike, Salt the Wound line does a total of 13 damage. So the winner there is the Salt the Wound line. We're going to play double strike, Salt the Wound, arsenal our Soaring Strike, and send it back to Katsu. Unfortunately, we can only deal 13 damage to Katsu. We put him to 1, but we don't force him to block with anything. Even the Mask of Momentum takes away resources from Katsu if we can threaten lethal this turn, and we just can't. But if we survive this next turn and we draw a blue, we can Kadachi Soaring Strike, which is likely lethal. Drawing into a Sink Below here is great because it lets us bottom this Art of War that doesn't block and doesn't pitch for Kadachi with Go Again. We'll see how Katsu is going to let us use this. Descendant Gustwave here from hand is something that I do really want to block. And I really want to block it because I want to put Katsu on having the Bonds of Ancestry in hand or arsenal. If Katsu doesn't have it and we let this Descendant hit, Katsu gets to find the bonds and gets to deal 8 more points of damage to us. Where if Katsu doesn't have it, we're taking a lot less damage this turn. So I'm going to block this Descendant Gustwave with Mask of Momentum and Tiger Stripe Shuko, which covers the breakpoint that Breaking Scales would give. If Katsu does have Ancestral Empowerment, we do have the Sink Below. But I'm going to make Katsu have it here. I'm not going to block 6 or 5. I'm going to make him have Ancestral Empowerment. So we do block for 4. And Katsu plays Razor Reflex out of Arsenal, which is not something that I was expecting him to have, and also doesn't change the fact that we still want to block this Gustwave. So we are going to play our Sink Below here, and we're going to bottom our Art of War. We make Katsu have the bonds. Hopefully, bottoming our Art of War finds us a blue, finds us a double strike, which is almost as good. And Katsu does have the natural bonds, which is just gross. Finds Fluster Fist, so we know that there are 9 points of damage coming our way between bonds, Fluster Fist, and Breaking Scales. We need to block 3 of that. And unfortunately, we only have 2 blocks in hand. If we did get to keep 2 cards plus our arsenal here, we do just win the game. As it is, we can send Kadachi Soaring Strike, which we're really just praying that Katsu does not have another Flick Flack. And that's even what I'm checking for in the discard. He's only played 2 at this point, so it is entirely possible that he has a Flick Flack in hand. But we do get the Mask of Momentum and an E-Strike, so no Flick Flack, fortunately. Katsu coming with Winds of Eternity and still holding Breaking Scales and Breeze Rider Boots. We need to block with Command and Conquer because we cannot afford to let Winds of Eternity hit, which would trigger Breeze Rider Boots, giving Katsu Go Again and potentially letting him follow this up with another attack. At this point, I believe that all 3 Fluster Fists are gone, which I guess leaves Katsu with 100 wins as the only findable target. We are going to block this with the CNC. Katsu does have the Ancestral Empowerment and can use Breaking Scales to get over the top of the CNC, take us to 2, and use Breeze Rider Boots. which he does. He Katsus into 100 wins. Gray Fox and I did have a brief conversation in the chat about this, and that he had miscounted the Fluster Fist, which I counted as a huge win for me, because if I need to block with 2 cards here, I lose the game. As it is, I get to keep Ronin Renegade and Blaze Headlong, which, assuming that Katsu does not have Flick Flack, takes 3 cards. We see that it does, leaving Katsu with 1. And we draw into a Brand with Cinderclaw and a Lava Vein Loyalty. So we are going to get to go 4 links wide on our next turn. We strip Katsu's hand entirely and get the win after that. We still have our Snapdragon Scalers, so there is no way that we can draw a hand that bricks. And we'll just get a nice win. The fact that I still have Snapdragon Scalers here makes me wonder if boarding E-Strike out of this matchup is the wrong decision. Maybe Double Strike should be coming out instead. Not having a target for Snapdragons is just a problem, right? There wasn't really an opportunity in this game to use the Snapdragons. If we lose a game and we have Snapdragons available, we can assume that we missed an opportunity to use it. And I would like to think that we missed an opportunity to use it here, but I really don't think we did. So maybe the E-Strike needs to stay in. E-Strike, bottom a card, draw is just a really good line. E-Strike for 7, follow it with a Lava Burst or Assault the Wound is a really good line. But nonetheless, we do pick up the win. We win with our Snapdragons, and we just feel bad about having it. This was an incredibly close game. It was incredibly well played by Gray Fox. It easily could have gone the other way if draws had been just a bit different. I think it was a very good showing from me as far as some tactical blocking or offense. I think we also saw how I blocked a little poorly on the Surging Strike Descendant Gustwave pass turn, which then saddled me with a Sink Below an Arsenal that I really didn't want there. I wanted to Arsenal an Art of War instead of a 5-card Art of War, which, if I had used the Sink Below on the previous turn, had 4 more points of life, maybe I would have been able to take whatever damage Katsu threw and present that 5-card Art of War and win off of that. But the Katsu matchup is fun, it is challenging, FaB is generally unfavored, and a lot of the decision making comes down to what we do and don't block and what we can afford to block. I hope you found this game helpful. I hope you did. If so, please be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. I'm still experimenting with the new light setup, so if you do or don't like it, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay. And until then, take care.